Hello, world. Welcome to another episode of In the Middle with Mark and Miles.
In the middle. Once again,
we're back in the middle.
Okay, come on, man. You can give me a little more energy.
I thought maybe, by this episode
this is Miles, that I would like be, no. I'm old, dude.
What you see is what you get, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
But, things haven't changed still in the midst of coronavirus. You're getting your I Am Legend on right now, just you and your dog, pretty much, right?
Yes, exactly. That's right. I am legend. Hopefully my dog doesn't meet the same fate.
Oh, right. Gotta snuff it out.
Yeah.
Like, we had a good run.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, New York seems like it's slowly coming back, but at the same time, you've seen everywhere else spiking up. So it's like,
yeah. What I think is funny is that we're starting to slowly and come back, which we will come back strong. But we're coming back slowly, but the rest of the world,
right?
It's like, no, your numbers are spiking. It's time to not come to New York,
right?
So I don't know.
Yeah,
it's all crazy, man.
I'm ready.
I mean, the whole thing.
I'm already telling myself, just face it. We're not going to the movies this year. Just accept it now. It'll be easier.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing, But at least we don't have Chaz anymore.
Right.
That took a minute.
And the thing is, for a long time, I didn't even understand what Chaz was. I kept hearing the phrase Chaz.
Yeah.
And I just thought
nobody does really. Nobody really does, and I know what.
Right.
I know what it was. I don't know what it was.
Right.
It was an aberration. It was.
So were they trying to be like their own little civilization within America?
It was. I don't even know what the goal was.
Mm-hmm.
It was. It was in Seattle. There was a protesting group that was clashing with police and had been for days.
Right.
At the East Precinct, which is up in Capitol Hill, which is a neighborhood of Seattle, and they, the mayor capitulated to the mob and gave them the East Precinct and told the police to leave.
What? That don't even make any sense.
True story, man. You can't make that shit up. You can't make that up.
Sound like something you see on HBO or something.
Yeah, exactly. You think you're watching a B movie, but it turns out that no, that's true. No,
not a Roger Corman film.
And then with their exactly. Roger Corman film. That's good. It was. Unfortunately, Seattle's a very progressive, have become very left blue state or blue city, and one of the comments that the mayor made, which will haunt her the rest of her days, was people out there looks more like a festival, and it could be a summer of love.
Oh, Lord. Like it would stop.
Fast forward to 5 shootings and 1 death.
Right.
I think she will be paying for that politically for a very long time.
That's for sure.
But it was just insanity. But when there were some interviews that were done with some of the Black Lives Matter leaders in that group.
Right.
One of them, I don't remember her name, but this gives you a great insight into what this group is about.
Right.
When asked, she said, "I am not here to peacefully protest. I am here to burn it down.
Oh,
I am here to change." And the interviewer, who unbeknownst to her was relatively conservative. I don't think everything about him is conservative, but anyway, he had the balls to ask her, then what?
Right. That's a great question to ask, though.
What's going to happen next?
Right.
Well, you see, you just don't understand. Okay, what is it I don't understand?
Mm-hmm.
You see, when we burn it all down and we abolish the police and get rid of the funding and get rid of all this stuff, all the great black minds will come together and we will figure out what the next step in our society is going to be. And yeah, I mean, the interviewer, what's he going to say to that?
Right.
You know, it's like, here's a woman who's completely lost her mind. Right? And, you know, to me, I'm like, oh, okay. So, you know, I think we talked about this before.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow, let's give this group everything they want.
Right. Then what?
Everything they want.
Mm-hmm.
Here you go. You want to burn it down? No problem. Okay. You, bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.
And what was funny? What was funny is there was this meme going around about, usually in the conservative side, about the new country of Chaz, which they ended up changing to CHOP.
Right.
So Chaz was the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone.
Right, which is too radical, apparently.
Yeah, well,
Right.
it's out of the Marxist playbook.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you grab a certain area and you push out law enforcement and or military or whoever, and you create your own space, and then you start pushing out, trying to overtake it. It's stupid. Anyway, they started talking about, you know, when it went to CHOP, which was the Capitol Hill occupied protest.
Right.
Is what they did. Is how they changed it because the optics were better, I guess. Which that alone should tell people
Right.
something. It's like, what was that about?
Right.
But anyway, this conservative meme was about we have a new nation. And the new yesterday we had 195 nations in the world. Today we have 196. Let me introduce you to the land of Chaz. They have borders, which they did,
Right.
and they were and they made those borders with armed individuals.
Right. I saw the photos.
Which
and
is
videos.
a significantly different approach to protesting. First time, at least for me, that I had seen weapons and firearms involved.
Right.
And I'm not talking about handguns. These
Right.
guys had, most of them had either AK-47s or AR-15s.
Right.
And not to say I'm a gun nut, but I know a lot about them. I've owned them on and off all my life. I grew up with guns.
Right.
You know, I hunted as a teenager, and it wasn't really my thing, but I love to shoot.
Right.
I mean, I just love to shoot. I'm not so much into killing, even though I would do it if I was pressured. But it is, you know, it was basically these people trying to establish themselves as this new world order.
Right.
You know? And that's frightening.
In the small city of Seattle.
Correct.
The images that I saw of Chaz, to me, it looked like a scene out of like the Book of Eli or something, where it's like a dystopian world. I was like, oh, this is how it starts.
Well, a lot of what they were showing on the liberal or left side was everything happening during the day,
Right.
and that's not when the evil came out. The evil came out at night.
Yeah, they usually do.
Because they can hide what they were doing.
Right.
And there was crime happening every night.
Right.
There were sexual assaults. There were shootings. One person died. And mainly that person died because they allowed them to bleed out because they wouldn't allow
Yeah, police escort the
emergency
paramedics.
service.
Right.
They wouldn't allow emergency services in.
Right. Insane. Well, I didn't know until last night was the whole idea of like, you know, they're a country within a country, and the American government was taking care of another country with it. Like, I didn't understand.
Well, okay, yeah. I was just going to get to that point. I'm glad you brought that up. So, in this new land of Chaz,
Mm-hmm.
They did not frown upon getting what's the term I'm looking for? Getting assistance from the American government,
Right.
or the local government. So a new nation with running water, with sanitation, with electricity,
Everything given to them.
had Wi-Fi. You know,
Oh,
I mean,
God.
they had everything given
Lovely.
to them. Everything given to them. Well, it is a new startup country, so they had to, they needed some kind of support. But they didn't want any law enforcement.
Right.
Okay.
We want everything but your law.
Yeah, yeah. And it looked like pretty much they didn't want any law at all.
Right.
At least the criminal aspect was still there, which they always will be,
Of course.
regardless of what group you're talking about. And the more you take away structure, the more that is going to build.
Sound like the Wild West.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Yeah, I'm not going there. That's a whole different discussion. But for it was just I just could not believe the insanity that people were going through. I don't know. Sometimes you think that people are, just trying to make a point, but this went beyond that.
Right.
I mean, this went way beyond that. But again, when the leadership was talking like this of that local group, it gives you insight to what they don't want. Answers. They don't want solutions. They want to burn it down.
Right.
That's what they want to do. That's why they're pulling down statues. They're pulling down statues because what is right out of the Marxist playbook? Destroy your history and create a new one.
Right.
And this is why they pull down statues.
I was asking somebody recently about, when it was like, oh, we got to burn it all down. I was like, well, why? We live here. Especially if, not even if, but, like I told you yesterday with the book, they came before Columbus. African Americans were already in this country before slavery. So why would you want to get rid of something we already built ourselves? Even if we didn't get the credit. And you're like, oh, but if you had a great grandmother who got raped on the table, why would you want to keep the table?
What?
Right. That was their
What?
I'm telling you.
Oh my God.
And I'm just saying here, just like, but,
Wow.
but if we built this, then why would we burn it down? It's our home. I'm telling you, that's the reasoning that they gave me.
Okay. Wow. I kind of. Okay, that's going to affect me for the rest of the day. I'm like, jeez. Talk about going dark.
Right?
It's like, do you really understand what you just said?
Right.
I mean, like, oh God.
But, I guess they just need a justification of it
Well,
all.
of course. Of course.
Like, we have to burn it. We have to get rid of it all.
So what happened? Here's another example of that. Okay, you move into a house. It's your first house, second house, whatever. Okay, you've established your home. You've been there for a little while, and then you find out that the whole family before you had been murdered there.
Right.
Are you gonna leave?
Right. Are you going to burn it down?
Are you going to? What are the legal ramifications of that? Yeah, there are some. But are you going to pick up and move? Because as we know, buying a house ain't an easy thing.
Oh, no.
And you just put all that money into it. You've settled your family in. What are you going to do? I don't think you're leaving.
Right.
It's one thing to have principle. It's another thing to be able to act in the real world.
Right.
Okay. It doesn't mean that you will stay there forever. Okay, maybe you'll start making plans to move or get out of the house. At a point where you don't think you're going to lose a lot of money. But anyway, I mean, I think if people would put themselves in the logical position of making decisions in reality, not just hyperbole.
Right.
Hyperbole, is that how you pronounce that? I don't read. I think you know that. But I did get the link to the book that you sent me. Thank you very much. So I will look at that. But it's Yeah, I get so tired of seeing people just be reactionary, and it's frustrating and it's exhausting.
Right.
Exhausting. And I think the people that have it, I think the people that have it the best right now are the ones that aren't saying anything.
Right.
I mean, because it is so easy to get spun up in all this stuff.
Right.
I mean, so easy to get spun up. And, or as the left likes to say, I'm triggered. I'm triggered.
I can't say I'm too surprised that this is happening now, because last year I noticed, I want to say maybe around November to December last year, I started noticing that most of the films that were coming out all related somewhere around like class struggles, class structure.
Sure. Yeah.
You had your films like Parasite, which won the Oscars. Ready or Not. Ready or Not, Joker, which was like one of the biggest ones of last year.
Sure.
Which the film ended with everybody
burn it down. Burn it down.
Just trying to burn down the city, kill the rich. So to see where things are just maybe 6 months later from those movies, I'm looking back and forth like they were just planted the seed.
Yeah, and it's probably been happening before that.
Right.
It's been happening. It's been a slow seeping effect over years.
Right. You could go as far as maybe when was that the last Dark Knight movie came out? What was that? Maybe 2000 and I can't remember. But
I can't remember where I had for breakfast yesterday.
But I remember somebody made a meme out of that film because it was like, hey, it started with a bat, then people had to start wearing masks, and then people start rioting in the streets. I was like,
that's logic. It's like all those conspiracy theories that have a modicum of truth, but then they get blown.
Oh yeah,
and it's like, but then people start believing it,
right? Because that's all they need.
No, you didn't see the secret 9/11 file. It's like, what? Not secret 9/11 file. Did you read the report afterwards from Congress? Yes, I did. Give me a break. And they go, I'm just like Benghazi. Same thing.
Right.
People losing their minds about what actually happened. And I go, did you read the report? Did you actually go to the Senate page and read the report? It was horrendous.
Right.
It was like a 400 or 800 page report. And you don't have to read it all. Read the first 100 pages.
Right.
That'll tell you everything right there. But anyway, I digress.
But yeah, I'm telling you, like I was watching this footage. This is during when all the rioting and looting started. Things have calmed down since then. But there were people out in actual Joker outfits, dancing like they're in the film as things were burning down or people were breaking. And I'm just like, they're having way too much fun out there.
Think of all the people that have been wearing the V for Vendetta masks for years.
That's right.
You got to believe that some of the seeping started at that time.
Right.
Whenever that came out.
That was like 2006, I believe.
Yeah.
I was like 16 when that film came out.
So,
and when I was young, I had no clue what the whole idea was. I'm just like, oh, comic book movie. Yeah, cool, fight scene. The guys who made The Matrix did it. That's awesome. Then you get older, then,
it was like, oh, wait, whoa.
Right?
Whoa,
like, what are you guys preaching
Wait a
here?
minute. Yeah, exactly. It's like propaganda.
Right.
It goes right back to what we were talking about.
Right.
It's like propaganda. Right up there with Disney. But it's the, I don't know. What the hell point were you trying to make?
What were
you trying to make?
The thing I'm trying to understand is, growing up, we have this idea. Well, for me, I can speak of myself. I had, you have this idea of like, okay, this is what adulthood would look like. This is what growing up in America would look like. Now, granted, of course, there's certain things wrong in certain places. You got people with the wrong mindset in powerful positions. That
of course,
that's granted. But
bad apples everywhere.
Right. But one thing I'm having a hard time understanding, why would we pretty much get rid of everything? You know what I mean? Like I can't understand, like, not everything here is tarnished. But they're treating it like, oh, there's nothing here. There's nothing sacred. Just get rid of it all.
Throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
That kind of thing. Yes, that's an old term. I get it. But it's still effective. It's personally, I think it's because people don't want to do the hard things, and those kinds of reforms, they are hard decisions, you know, and for people, it's just easier for people to jump on a bandwagon. It's easier for people not to have to go and research stuff.
Right.
It's easier for people to say, no, you know, my boy said that A, B, or C was true, so I'm right with him. You know, I'm right with him, having no clue what his boy is talking about. People don't. They just don't want to do the hard steps. You know, educating yourself,
right,
and educating yourself in reality. Okay, there are some, as you know, there is some, you know, stuff out there that just, you know, as we talk about Wikipedia, you know, that's not your resource. Okay. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, Wikipedia, I would say, it's the starting point. It's not the end game of doing your research. You know, there was a friend of mine who dated this girl, and you know, every once in a while they have to go out to the exit, like I watch the kid. And around the time, you know, I would try to find ways to educate her. Cause my mom wasn't like, you know, like, oh, read this, watch that, da da da. So, you know, I would try to like, hey, let's try to read this book. And it would almost be like she was in like physical pain trying to learn. And seeing her go through that made me start thinking about all the adults that I know when I try to get them to read, how they react. I'm like, wow, this starts off early.
Oh yeah, man.
This starts off really, really early.
Yeah. Well, this is the. Now, I'm going to sound a little conspiracy theory here, but you can back it up if you actually, you know, look at it. This is the seeping of the progressive left's mentality and orthodoxy into the education system. Started in the universities, but it didn't stop there.
Right.
Over the course of decades, they are now in the public schools.
Right.
Okay. It's unbelievable. You know, there are topics that come up that become major topics, like whether or not someone is a man or a woman,
Yeah,
or a boy,
have that
or, a boy or a girl in school.
Right.
I believe that a child is not developed enough to make those kind of decisions.
Right.
And as a parent, being a parent, that's not a decision you make for them.
Right.
Whatever they tell you. You know, I think I don't remember what show it was. I remember watching some show, and there's a father and son. They're talking about how he had gotten into trouble, okay, in school, and then he started spouting off this stuff about, well, I feel like I was being wronged, and I stood up for myself because, you know, as us, and they were African American,
okay,
and it was like, and for us it was, you know, I felt that I was being oppressed or a struggle, and I'm not paraphrasing it well, but anyway, there was a pause. There was a pause, and the father looked at him and go, "What kind of crap is that? You lost your mind, you know?" And I mean, that's a snippet of just to explain that just because your kid comes up with something doesn't mean it's right or that you should support it.
Right.
You know, if they come to you and say, hey, not even tell you, they come up like you. I mean, it's like, look, you didn't ask for it, but all of a sudden your parents are giving you videos of like how to make videos, right? And then you grabbed hold of that and ran with it, okay,
right.
All right, that's an organically perpetuated learning,
right.
okay? I totally get that, but for a child to come to a parent and say, you know, I really like dresses, and I feel like I'm a girl. Okay, I'm not going to say no to that.
Right.
Okay, I'm not as the parent. If I had a child that came to me and said that, I'm going to support the kid, but I'm not going to go overboard.
Right.
I'm not going to say, hey, it's okay for you to dress up. Hey, it's okay to change your name. Hey, it's okay to go to school like this.
Right. Change your whole identity.
What? Are you okay? Number one,
I've heard people that literally have discussions of like, oh, we're about to have a kid. Like, oh, do you know what it is yet? They're like, oh, we haven't decided the sex yet. Like, wait,
exactly.
Huh? How is the kid going to decide its own sex?
But this, let's just pull this all together. What we were talking about before. This is what we're talking about. It's the progressive left seeping into our education system,
Right.
to where there are no norms anymore. And the norms that they want to propose don't work.
Right.
As we see, and it's sad. It's so sad, and it makes it so much more difficult for teachers.
Right.
Number one, and that's teachers. That's a whole other thing.
Right.
And there are my experience is that there are teachers that shouldn't be teachers.
Right.
I mean, that's just the way they are.
Right.
They decided on getting an education for a different reason than what a good teacher typically does.
Right.
But that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah, that's
that's like
I'm big on
don't get me there.
People will do what they want, but it's just like don't force them on everybody,
No, exactly, and don't try to change society based off of that.
Right.
And because in the big scheme of things, it's about 1/100th of everything else that's going on.
Right.
And another thing that the progressive left does is that they want you to focus on the extremes.
Right.
Okay. And they will come up with all the different extremes, like we need to be equal. We need to really. Now you're an American before you're anything.
Right.
Okay. If you're born here or you migrated here, if you came through legally and did all your paperwork, you're an American. No problem. You're an American before you're anything else.
Right.
When we're talking about society, as an individual, that's different.
Right.
Okay, I get that. You have your own different identity. I get that. Okay, but before you're anything else,
American first.
you're an American, because there's a lot of people that did a lot of things, maybe even they're giving their life to give you the freedoms that you have now.
Right.
So you may want to check yourself.
Check the
before
privilege.
before not even no, it's like it's my privilege that I have to check time and again. They don't have any privilege.
Right.
They won't admit to having any privilege. But I think you and I both can agree that being an American citizen has its issues. Would you really want to be anywhere else?
No, I've literally traveled the world and I've seen what the other half looks like, and I'm just like, I still prefer it back home,
Right. No, exactly.
And people be like, but you can do this here, you can do that here. I'm like, yeah, but then you can do all the other stuff too. That's the problem. Like, you gotta.
Yeah. How many times has your government changed? No. I'm not going.
Like, and I think what it is because people haven't witnessed that type of life before. Like I told you, when I was in Haiti, there was a moment when the National Guard came in and like every day I'm seeing tanks go down the block. I'm seeing, these helicopters fly over. Like, it's like I'm in the middle of a war film.
Yeah, it's social media's changed a lot. Getting away from basic manners, I think, was really the beginning of a lot of this.
Right.
When I was growing up, it was about, standard stuff that you would just, you would always address your elders as Mr. or Mrs. or
Right.
Miss. You would always open doors for females. You would always say yes or no, sir, ma'am, whatever.
Yes, ma'am, no.
Yeah, no, ma'am. Those were standard things. You
Right.
didn't deviate from that. Because if you deviated from it, you were seen as someone who was not disciplined.
Right.
Someone who did not respect others. Because that is basically what it was about.
Right.
I think you you turned me on to that movie Blast from the Past.
Blast from the Past, right?
And there was a scene in there that I completely had forgotten about, which was not the scene, but the content of the scene was the reason that gentlemen or you treat people like a gentleman or a lady is out of respect,
right?
Period. There isn't anything more than that,
right?
Okay, it's a sign that you respect that person and that you expect that person to respect you,
right? And
we have gotten so far away
from that.
I mean, I remember when I was like in my 20s, and I would, I think it was in college, and I would go and I would open doors for people, for the ladies I might be dating.
And you wouldn't even think nothing of it. It's just
no, exactly. I mean, there were so many. I forget how many times I had to do that.
But it was almost like second nature.
Yeah, no, exactly. Second nature is a dog. You know, it's like I was just like that.
Right.
No, but when I would meet their parents, you know, it was always Mr., Mrs., you know, whatever. Always the respect.
Right.
Always respect, because the respect means that you have respect for yourself, but you also have respect for a person.
Right.
But that you also expect it.
Right.
From others. And that, it was the whole, you know, like the premise of that particular movie was showing what the old school values were,
right?
You know, and they mattered.
Right.
And since we've gotten so far away from that, we see when you don't have them, what happens.
So for the audience who's never heard of the film Blast from the Past, the film stars Brandon Fraser and Alicia Silverstone. It's from, I believe, 1999. And in the film, Christopher Walken and his wife, they believe there was a nuclear attack on America, and he'd been building this underground bunker for years. So a helicopter crashes on their property, and they believe, oh, this is it. It's happening.
In 1962.
In 1962. And then they lock themselves down there for 30 years. For 30 years.
35.
35 years.
35 years.
35 years.
And it was a fallout shelter, not a bomb shelter.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
Yeah, it was a fallout.
Yeah, I'm like, okay.
And they raised their child with basically the mentality, the mindset of how people work.
Early 1960s,
right? And so when he gets out of there, it's I believe in 1999 in the film when he first come to to society for the first time, and this is peak 90s, like this is 90s to the T. So it's like punk rock, hip hop. It's like it's a whole different world, but he still has the happy-go-lucky 1960s mentality. Like you see the black person for the first time, oh my, Negro, and he gets so excited, like it's so pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, they're all looking at him like what's
up with this guy? He's like
exactly.
This guy.
Yeah.
And growing up for me, especially as a kid in the 90s, I was born in 1990. Most of the films around that time were people, late 80s, early 90s. Most of the filmmakers were raised around the 60s and 70s and were now making films about that era. You're Back to the Future, you like the Pleasantville, Blast from the Past. Yep. So I grew up thinking like, all right, this is the norm. This is, it was the norm, but I'm thinking this is how things are going to continue to be.
That was your indoctrination.
Yes. Now, mind you, being a product of the 90s, I'm going to school and I'm the only one going, oh, gee whiz, golly. And everyone looking at me like, what are you talking about? And
especially in this city.
Oh, yeah. Especially, because they're like, yo.
It's like, son, what's wrong with you?
People really ask me, like, are you from a smaller town or something? I'm like, no, I'm right here in Queens. Like, what is going on over there in Queens? You don't sound like nobody from Queens.
Yeah, they're all looking at you going, you spend a lot of time alone, don't you?
Exactly. They're like, bro, you need to get some new friends, man, or something. Like, what are you doing over there? But as I was coming up, I kept those values because that's, it felt right. It felt right. There was nothing. Exactly. And then, I was just talking to other people, and, people would get so surprised, like, wow. For a guy your age, it's shocking to even hear you say certain things, to behave a certain way.
And I'm sure that your friends' parents were like,
they're like, follow this guy.
Yeah, where's Miles? That's happening.
No.
It's like they're at home, you're not around, and they're looking at you, looking at the friend of yours, and going, wait a minute, where's Miles? Where's Miles? Did you call Miles? Can he come over? Can Miles come over? Come on.
I've had that a lot. Where friends will call me up like, hey, my mom wants you to come over because she thinks you would be a good influence on me. And it was funny because sometimes it would be the exact opposite. Like, all right, we're going to film a bank robbery today, so let's go. So they're like, he's such a kind gentleman, but at the same time, he's a millennial.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the bridge was in there. You know, and you know, to this day, you know, I'm still following those values, but you know, every day I see, you know, the world basically just throw them away, like overnight.
Yeah.
You know, and when I was growing up in the church, before YouTube was a thing and conspiracy theories were everywhere, there used to be like certain like elders and pastors that would come with these little documentaries, you know, like they sold for rock and roll, or you know, they were basically like, oh, you know, the music, the film that's coming out, the TV show, they're affecting the youth. You know, they're convincing them, you know, violence and drugs and crime and this and that. And
well, that's been going on for a very long time since TV was developed.
Right.
I mean, they were saying the exact same things in the 50s.
Right.
You know, about, you know, what do they say about weed?
Reefer Madness?
Yes, Reefer Madness. Have you ever watched that?
Yes, I have.
Oh,
it's insane.
Oh, my
insane
God.
what they were teaching.
It was like,
video.
even for me, that was like, you know, that was like too far. Hey, Mike. Yeah, even for me, it was just like, what?
Right.
When I saw it, and I saw it like in high school.
Right. It was brand new.
Yeah, no, it was propaganda, completely propaganda. It was like, I'm going to put the fear of God. Look what happens to these people.
Were trying to do.
Well, and then fast forward, what was the next message? The next message was, it's a gateway drug.
Right.
You know, it's a gateway drug before you go to all the hard stuff.
Right.
Really?
Yeah, that's definitely not true at all.
And of course, you know, when they started saying that, I was at an age where like, oh, okay. You know, I was like, yeah, oh, absolutely. And that's just like, you know, it's bad. It's bad. But I was a reefer head in college. Okay? I was like, yeah.
You had no tendency to want to break into anybody's
but,
car.
You know, I was like at the end of the 70s and the early 80s. You know, I was
product of the time.
Yeah, I just, for the first couple of years. You see, when I grew up, you know, I was Boy Scout.
Right.
Okay. I was, you know, I was the blonde, blue-eyed, all-American kid.
Right.
And so it was just stepping out of that image was never an option.
Right.
Okay.
Like you're like one of the guys from the Ron Howard and Happy Days.
Yes. Exactly. Pretty close. Pretty close. Even though deep down, you know, the darkness was coming over.
Right.
But the
You want to be more like Fonzie.
yeah, exactly. Hey. Oh God. Yeah. So, you know, so when I was in high school, it was like I didn't drink like during the season.
Right.
You know, I didn't really have a drink until I was like 16.
Right.
And then it was, you know, and I went all through high school like that. And I got to college, and I was still thinking that way.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, I'm watching guys that I was playing football with at the time in college. The night before a game, they were out getting drunk, taking lewds. And I'm like, what? How is it? And these guys were all Americans.
Right.
Okay. How is that possible? You know, because it was just this whole, you know, my whole mind just went, wow.
Right.
You know, the Boy Scout image of how I believed everybody was turned out to be not even close to being correct. Not even close. But again, you know, the country boy in me. I was.
That was a rude awakening.
I definitely went down the rabbit hole for that one. I was like, no, I'll be fine. I almost flunked out my first semester.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. I was. Yeah, I was on academic probation after my first semester.
Jeez.
I was like, you know, I may need to pull the reins back a little bit. You know, so I actually started going to class, and I started to learn what it was like to take notes, you know, kind of be responsible.
Right.
I think that was one of my my early memories of college of becoming responsible.
Right.
That second semester I was there. So yeah, but I ended up finishing in time.
Right.
How I'm not to this day I'm not quite sure, but you know, it ended up that way. But these the values that have changed, I think, and look, I'm not trying to say that everything that was done before was right.
Right.
What I'm saying is that a lot of what came before worked, and it was about personal responsibility. It was about hard work. It was about, being accountable.
Right.
Those are good, strong, basic values.
Right.
Okay. Period.
Now it's not cool. It's square.
No, exactly. Welcome to the '60s, and it all became, about the individual, and it all became about, feminism, and we want to be equal, and all that stuff that was coming out of that, and it just doesn't work.
Right.
And I think we've proven that over the course of I don't know how many times or how many decades.
Right.
That it just doesn't work.
Right.
So, and I, and I try to stay away from the feminism movement because it's a non-winnable argument.
Yeah, there's no winning.
Non-winnable argument, especially when you're married. Definitely a non-winnable argument. But it is it is being proven over and over and over again that men and women are different. Shock.
Right.
Okay. There are nations. Norway. I'm just going to throw that one out there.
Okay.
That are an egalitarian type of society,
Right.
and basically they try to make everything even, everything.
Right.
So the choices that you have as a man or a woman are almost exactly the same.
Right.
But here's what they've learned over time: is if you allow men and women to naturally make decisions on their own about what to do with their lives, men will always focus on things, and women will always focus on people and emotions. Period.
Right.
And what they found is that men typically would go into fields that are like engineering, okay? Women typically would go into fields that are more nurturing, like nursing. And those are just two examples, but it was significant. Now, if you have a woman who really wants to be a CEO of a company, they have that opportunity there.
Right.
That's there. But they are so far out of the norm. People want to pay more attention to the extremes than they do want to pay attention to the majority of the people.
Right.
And I think those opportunities are great, and I think our country allows for that to happen.
Right.
If that is where you want to go.
Right.
Is it more difficult as a woman to be, I don't know, a cop? Yes. Okay. Is it more difficult for a woman to be in a predominantly male corporate office? Yes. However, in the natural order of things, you will have more men there. That doesn't mean that you don't have the opportunity.
Right.
That just means it's going to be harder for you. Period. And then people just want to start. People want to start saying to themselves, "Well, that means I'm being oppressed." No, it just means you have to work harder.
Right.
That's what that means.
I'm starting to realize a lot of people miss out on opportunities because they stay focused on I'm oppressed, so I don't have that opportunity. And the opportunity is right there for them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, exactly. And they want to focus on the easy. And it's easy to say that.
Right.
It's easy to say, well, I just, I have no shot. There's no way I can get there.
They didn't just give it to me. I have no way to getting it.
There was about a half a second where I wanted to be a pro football player. About halfway through my college career, I knew there was no way I was going to be a pro player. I was too slow.
Right.
My 40 time was too slow. I wasn't. The one thing in football that I had is I was quick. And being a lineman, that was important.
Right.
But everything else, everything that goes into it, even I knew that even if I operated at the very highest level that I could before drugs,
Right.
I still wouldn't make that cut.
Right.
And then even after taking drugs, I may have gotten in the door. Okay, maybe I got in the door, but I wouldn't have lasted.
Right.
So why, for me, it just, the return on investment didn't seem
Right, didn't make any
level.
sense. Right. I had something similar with my childhood. I remember when I told you that when I was a child, we didn't have Saturday morning cartoons. My mom was like,
Right.
you have to have some type of activity you have to do when you're not in
Yep.
school. So, we had basketball, we had played tennis, we did, drums, piano, dance, karate,
Tennis?
Tennis, yes. I played tennis for 3 years.
Tennis.
Tennis. That's what I was trying to say last time.
I'm sorry, man. You're black. You don't play tennis. Come on, man. Really?
Say that to
Come on.
Serena Serena and Venus, And trust me, you heard those names all day in
Really?
tennis class. That's
Really?
all you hear all day.
Wow.
And that's what, remember when we were trying to talk about trophies, they always gave the trophies to every.
Yes.
This is why I knew that there was something wrong here, because I really didn't want to be there at all. They would literally have to force, which it was basketball, it was tennis.
Yeah.
I didn't want to play. They always had to force me in there, like, get in there. I'm like, oh, fine. So the ball's going one way. I'm slowly walking to the other side of the court, going after it, like, fine. I just want to run off the Boy Scouts and go,
Yeah, and
tent and stuff.
Yeah, you're the kid that could get hurt.
Right.
He's like, whap, get knocked by a ball.
So around, I want to say from 2000 to 2003, I'm playing tennis, and every year they give me a trophy. And I'm sitting here like, but I didn't do anything. I played and learned the backhand, the forehand, but it's not like I was doing tournaments or anything, but they always gave me a trophy. And I'm just like, see, there's something wrong here. You got to give me confidence that I can do something that I really don't want to do. And you're convincing me, you could be the next Serena and Venus. I'm like, but I don't want to be the next Serena and Venus,
Well,
I mean, you could have.
Well, not really. You're a man.
Yeah, that could have been done, but even my mom at one point, she was just putting me like in the basketball class. She was like, one of these things is gonna work out for you, not realizing I was already on the path to making films, I'm like,
since you were 4,
right? Like, come on, Ma, you know this, but she was like, no, you can't
really explain that to a parent when
right?
you're 4,
right?
Or 8 or 10,
right?
Or any of that.
Then it wasn't until at least maybe 12, 13, 14 that she started even paying attention. Like, oh, you know how to work a camera.
Well, it takes about 10 years. A parent seeing something for like 10 years, regardless, and believe me, as you get older, it doesn't change.
No, it doesn't. It wasn't until other people was telling my mom about my work that she started to actually refer to me as a filmmaker.
Exactly.
It was years. It was years. Before, it was just me playing, make believe with my friends on camera for years until, I'm in school and she's getting phone calls for auditions. Like, hey, I want to come audition for a film. She's like, what? He's 16. What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. I love your mom. I don't know your mom, but I love your mom. I mean, that because I completely relate with that. I used to, like when I would call from college, sometimes nobody would answer the phone.
Right.
And we had answering machines.
Right.
Okay. Nobody answered the phone.
Right.
And they wouldn't get an answer machine.
Right.
I'm like, help me. Help me help you. Right. Okay, really. I mean, just meet me halfway. And that was a continual thing. Then it was voicemail, and then,
right.
Then it was cell phones and all this stuff. But anyway.
Well, what I was saying with I'm the trophy generation, and a lot of people in my generation, they believe we can do anything we put our mind to, even if you're not built that way. We're just like, no, I can do it. I got all these trophies. You see all my trophies? This means I can do it all, and it's not realistic.
I can be a famous athlete if I want.
If I wanted it, I can do it.
And we have really done a disservice to a whole generation, a real disservice, because you're now seeing the results of that. You've thrown these kids into real life where they're out of school, however long it took them to get out of school, because they were probably too scared to get out of school.
Right.
And then get to the point where you have to determine what what to do with your life.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they go to a job, and they're at this job, and all of a sudden they're looking at the guy and goes, well, what do you mean I have to do this?
Right. That's not my job description.
Yeah. What do you mean that I have to go home at this particular time? Like, why can't I come in at 9 instead of 8?
Right.
That kind of stuff. And a lot of it's not their fault.
Right. Yeah, definitely my generation. I've different workforce. Whether I was at the bookstore, where I was working at FedEx, I've seen people who literally, were like, I can't be doing this. I'm my own boss, and they leave, and then nothing happens for them. It's like, okay, you left the job, so what you gonna do now? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they have all the options in the world of what they can be. They can't make up their mind what they should be.
Yeah, because they don't self-reflect.
Right.
And that's, for me, I think that's everything.
Right.
It's like I told my daughter, man, when she was very, very young, I said, the one thing that you need to have is knowing yourself.
Right.
Self-reflection, understanding who you are, because at the end of the day, regardless of what happens to you, you will have that, and you will always be that.
Right.
So it's very important for you at a very early age. Or not, I don't remember. I think she was 10. When I was talking to her like that. But I always repeated it, always.
Right.
And I repeated it right up until last week. She's what? She's 25 now. But yeah, it's it's important.
Right.
Those are the important things.
All right. So, people, as always, we're here to tell you: be the change you want to see in the world.
Be the change.
Yeah.
T-shirts to come. Have a good day.
See you later, guys.